Well, let's go to our guest in Manila. RJ Nieto was an advisor to President Rodrigo Duterte's government and is now a blogger and radio host. And Tom Villarin is a Filipino congressman and a member of the ASEAN Parliamentarians for Human Rights. Gentlemen, good to have you on the Newsmakers. RJ Nieto, so your president saying, if you try to impeach me, I will jail you. He's not just talking to anybody, he's talking to opposition congressmen, senators. That's not very democratic of him, is it?
Well, first, I would like to clarify that I am not an advisor to the government. I sometimes give them my input, my ideas, but I am in no way a formal employee or in any form of contract with the government. Now, as to your question on whether, on what I can say about the president's latest comments that he will imprison anyone who will attempt to impeach him, I actually criticized the president that that is a very unnecessary statement. We all know that my president, President Rodrigo Duterte, is prone to unleashing hyperboles. And so far as I know, he has managed to imprison or at least detain only one political opponent, and that is Senator Leila de Lima. So in as far as keeping true to his quote-unquote promises of sending people to jail, I think that's more of an exaggeration than an actual threat.
Okay, but if we look at his track record, Leila de Lima was outspoken. She was his biggest critic. She wanted to impeach him.
Yes.
And the senator finds herself in jail on drug charges, which human rights groups say are trumped up. Convenient. Might that just be the start? We have evidence that he's done this before.
Well, I think this is the issue with Senator Leila de Lima is very interesting because for several months, the upper and lower houses of Congress held hearings inquiring about the supposed proliferation of illegal drugs in our prisons because early in 2016, or means late 2016 and in early 2017, there's been Senate hearings and congressional hearings checking on whether there really is a shabu laboratory or meth laboratory inside Bilibid prison, which is basically our national penitentiary. Now, a lot of the resource speakers or witnesses, some of whom were prisoners who are incarcerated inside Bilibid, testified against Senator Leila de Lima, accusing her of complicity with the drug trade. Now, in about October 2016, there were two cases filed by two separate groups alleging that de Lima is in conspiracy with other former government officials in the Bilibid drug trade. Now, instead of Senator de Lima answering those allegations, what she did was to totally ignore them and then request the regional trial court to quash the information.
You believe her imprisonment is justified and has nothing to do with the fact that she went after the president. He threatened to throw her in jail, and you believe the two have nothing to do with each other?
Well, here's the thing. When she appealed to the Supreme Court questioning the justification behind her arrest, the Supreme Court, and she questioned how the prosecutors and the regional trial courts decided that there's probable cause behind their arrest warrant. The Supreme Court itself said that the only information available to them was the evidence, the testimonies provided by the prosecution, because Leila de Lima herself neglected to speak to defend herself. So what would you have the courts do?
Okay, let's park her off for a moment. Tom Villarin, when President Duterte says, if you're going to come after me and you want to impeach me, whether you disagree with me over the China issue or other things, I'm going to throw you in jail. What's the message to Filipino congressmen?
Yes, sure. Yes, I think that threatening note coming from the president gives that air of stifling the opposition, and he has done that in the past. And even now, the chief PNP has abided by such pronouncement of the president, even saying that the PNP, the National Police, will do what the president commands. So meaning, right now, these threats are not empty threats, but these are real threats targeted at the opposition.
RJ, when we hear the president say these things, now, no matter where you stand on the China issue, he might actually be right on the China issue. I mean, this is open to debate, right? So he's siding with China on this particular issue of sovereignty. You have people pushing back against him. That issue can be debated on its own merits. But the fact that this was his first knee-jerk reaction to any criticism, doesn't it tell you that you have a president who has absolute contempt for the democratic process?
Well, I wouldn't say that he has absolute contempt for the democratic process, because as far as I know, there's only been one opposition official who's been sent to jail. And when I tell you that what the president says are basically empty threats, I mean it, because as for me, I am a blogger in the Philippines with about 1.4 million followers. And I actually face a libel case filed by one of the opposition senators. That opposition senator does not speak like Duterte, but he actually sues people, sues regular citizens. Now, that would be a little unfair if you're going to say, like, well, he's not the president. But the point here is, this president comes from a different generation, and that generation is very prone to exaggerations.
Okay,
now,
but RJ,
if I were
when
to
he came to
choose,
power, RJ,
if
when
you
he
could
came
give,
to power,
if
he comes from a different generation. When he came to power, he said, I'm going to kill people involved in the drug trade. 27,000 people are dead, according to high estimates. The police says 6,000, right? But we can even split the difference. Say it's between 15 and 20. Thousands of people have died.
Well, it's not even that.
Thousands of people have died after he said, we're going to kill people extrajudicially. So he's threatened, and it's been done. What is the story about empty
Here's a very interesting fact. All right, here's the interesting thing about the number of supposed extrajudicial killings. The police gave a sum of about, say, 10,000. Let's just put it that much, and let's say it's that much. But news reports, I admit, say, quote around 27,000. I don't know anymore. But the problem is, I for myself tried to fact check media. I even tried to fact check government, and I criticize government wherever I feel the need to. Now, the point here is, when I ask those media companies, like, for example, Rappler.com, I asked them, so where did you get the numbers that you got? Well, they don't have an answer.
But Duterte doesn't question the numbers.
There was even an open challenge. Can you at least name at least 10,000 of the name of the 27,000 that you allege are killed?
RJ, your president doesn't contest the numbers. He says it was worth it.
Well, at first he tried to defend himself, but I think he felt that the media is not hearing him at all. And at the fact that his communications team are monumentally incompetent. I myself admit that the presidential communications is a bunch of incompetent fools.
Tom Villarin, no matter what the criticism, even though he's threatening politicians, he's threatened journalists, he's threatened all sorts of people, his approval rating is still in the high 70s. People still trust him. People still believe in him. What's going on there?
Well, I think that trust rating is still conjunctural, meaning it can go down any time, given now that his chance is to push for charge for change. No? And right now, the issue on the China's aggression, bullying, as well as violating our sovereign rights in our exclusive economic zone, its island building and occupation in the West Philippine Sea, all this point to rising anger from Filipinos. And I think.
But is it a rise, Tom? Is it a rise in anger among the people, or a rise in anger among opposition politicians? Because so far there's been no evidence that the people are actually turning against their president. 2 years on, we're still in the upper 70s. That's a massive show of support.
Yeah, but what I'm saying is that there's a broader groups now saying that the president did something unconstitutional. So you have the likes of Supreme Court Justice Antonio Carpio, you have the likes of Secretary Alberto Del Rosario, you have the likes of former Ombudsman Carp Morales, and these are not the politicians. No?
I
that
see.
are now speaking against Duterte and want to hold him accountable, no, through an impeachment process. So I think with this kind of people standing up, and perhaps later, no, more Filipinos would say, because in the past, in surveys, two-thirds of Filipinos don't want the president to tangle with the Constitution. And now, if Duterte is saying that the Constitution is just a piece of toilet paper, I think reaction, against this kind of statements would boomerang against the
I
president.
see.
And if he wants to push the envelope more, and let's say through his brinkmanship style of governance, he would really push for charter change. I think that's when a broader opposition will develop
I see.
and would say no to any form of charter change.
RJ, do you agree with that? That perhaps his style of leadership can
Well,
work
I
when it
think-
comes to killing people on the streets in the drug war, but it's a little bit different when it comes to the issue of the Constitution. Might we see people being convinced that their support for Duterte is questionable?
That's a bit of a complex question because you used as a premise that it's okay to kill people on the streets.
I said
That
the
is something
issue of
that still
killing
has to
people
be
on the
proven
streets.
because
Listen, I'm holding him to
Yeah.
his own words, right? That's it. He's saying, yes, it's justified. So I'm saying, okay, but the people still support you. So maybe for the greater good, the Filipino people believe that the drug problem is so bad that they are okay with their president maybe bending the law or being extra harsh, right? In his own words, he says extrajudicial
Okay.
killings are fine. But might it be a little bit different when it comes to the Constitution? Is Tom maybe right that when it comes to the issue of the Constitution and sovereignty, perhaps the tide will turn and his gambling style might not work?
I heard the congressman speak about a broader coalition that's forming in the opposition and that there might be an impeachment case and that if he pushes the envelope, there might be he might lose major support. I think that theory is cute, but it's not hinged on reality because what we have to admit, we Filipinos, we are a developing country and with a very weak military. And China, I know, is engaging in aggressive action in South China Sea. So we are given two options: either to wage war against China or to talk to them. So if we don't have nuclear bombs, we only have even just one functioning destroyer in the Navy. Then what else do we have to? What are our other options?
So let's get the congressman to respond.
To talk to China.
Okay, so Tom, your president's being pragmatic and putting the interests of your nation first by not picking a fight with a more powerful nation. That's the argument from RJ. What do you think, Tom?
Well, the issue is not that we want war against China. The issue here is really upholding our constitution and the sovereign rights of Filipinos, and of course protecting our territory from China, the aggression from China. So the point here is that we are upholding the constitution, and it is this very same constitution that put President Duterte into power. So now what he's saying is he wants to do away with the constitution because the constitution explicitly says that we have the exclusive right over our economic zone, and we have our sovereign rights over the maritime resources, the marine resources in this exclusive economic zone. So that is stipulated in the Constitution. So the retort of President Duterte saying that that piece of Constitution is meaningless, it's full, it's like a toilet paper.
Okay.
That will have a backlash, on the way how government treat its own constitution.
Okay, so listen, Tom and RJ, in the separate discussion, we'll look into the details of the issue with China and the maritime boundaries and the dispute. But I've got to move on for now. I hope you'll both come back onto the Newsmaker sometime soon. Thanks for joining us.